of their population with all their skills, talent, and other contribution. The COVID-19 pandemic has put the spotlight on the inequalities of the old generation are still facing. Many older people experience neglect, poverty, social exclusion, and isolation. A recent UNFPA survey in Eastern Europe found that 8 in 10 people say that they are lonely. The UN first global report on ageism found that rampant aging robs millions of older people in Europe from opportunities to fulfill their potential. The war in Ukraine has shown how older people, most of whom are women, are particularly hard hit by humanitarian crisis. We need to approach the demographic changes based on analysis of evidence and the importance of people's rights and choices. We know that demographic shifts comes with challenges, but also with a lot of opportunities for individuals, but also for societies. We see growing support for an approach to demographic change that is not based on anxiety or fear or even panic. This growing support is simply based on a sober analysis of evidence, the importance of people's right and choice, and on the realization that demographic shifts certainly comes with challenge, but also with extraordinary opportunities. We must work together to support countries in mitigating the potential negative effect and harnessing the opportunities that also come with the demographic changes. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, with this event today, we are continuing the work we started in Sofia, Bulgaria, in December last year with the Ministerial Conference on Demographic Resilience. In Sofia, we launched the Decade of Demographic Resilience to help galvanize action for enabling countries to thrive in a world of rapid demographic change. Supporting countries in mitigating the potential negative effect and harnessing opportunity that also come with demographic changes is what we are here set to do. And in that respect, we are inviting all of you to join the policy and practice community we have created, the Sofia Alliance, to offer or receive or support. Excellencies, the life expectancy of people has increased. The experience, energy, and wisdom of older persons should not go to waste. Policies that encourage healthy and active aging can provide great returns on investment. Non-communicable diseases tend to manifest themselves most prominently in older age and tend to be costly to treat. Prevention, therefore, is the most efficient way of addressing this challenge, and life course approach to aging should be an integral aspect of any policy that aims to address aging. And if I may, let's keep in mind that even those who are in need of care indirectly provide an economic stimulus. Their needs create employment for those who provide care and those who produce the physical materials needed for the caregiving. Nonetheless, irrespective of the potential social or economic consideration, there are few elements that should never be compromised. Older persons deserve to be always and in all circumstances treated with dignity, respect, and anytime possible with love. Let's try to leave no one behind. As I wish all of us a positive and constructive side event, allow me to be a little bit more personal. Everybody is an aging person, whether you are 40 or 99 and everything in between. So allow me to bring a smile on your face. Someone at UNFPA today is getting a bit older. Happy birthday, Jens.
Thank you, Diane, and really we appreciate your strong message of UNFPA commitment to demographic resilience, but also bringing the human face. At the end, no one should be left behind, what we stand as an organization. With this and with your permission, I would like now to thank the opening speakers. I would like to invite them to take back their seats on the first row and invite on the podium our distinguished panelists for the second part. Yes, thank you. So I would like now to call upon on the stage His Excellency Nerek Makarjian, the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs of the Republic of Armenia. Welcome. I have the pleasure to invite on the stage Her Excellency Silvanka Trenchevska, the Minister of Labor and Social Policy of the Republic of North Macedonia. Welcome. I would like now to invite on the podium His Excellency Marcei Spatari, the Minister of Labor and Social Protection of the Republic of Moldova. At last but not least is our dear friend and strong partner for UNFPA in the journey of demographic resilience, Professor Edward Guido Baston from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Stuart, please join us. I would like to remind you that we welcome any views and comments on the social media, and we invite you to use the hashtags of the conference, hashtag MIPAA20 Rome, but also hashtag demographic resilience. Now that the panelists are seated, I would like to invite Professor Stuart Guido Baston to address us and take us through the concept of demographic resilience and link this discussion with what happened about a couple of months ago in Sofia at the Demographic Resilience Ministerial Conference. Stuart, you have the floor.
Should I stay here or go?
Wherever you feel comfortable, here is also good, or you prefer standing.
Yeah, let's stay
Yes.
here. Okay, we can stay. Well, thank you very much, Marta, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I do not work for UNFPA, so my impressions of demographic resilience are as an outsider. But of course, the point of the whole program is to be engaging, is not to be within UNFPA, but to be engaging with multiple stakeholders. I'm a real-life demographer. It is my job my amazing job to be able to work on these issues. But of course, very often times, demography is presented as very depressing, as a very miserable activity, because the one thing we know, every country in the world, every territory on the planet will go through the process of population aging. It is a fact. And also every country on earth will go through slower population growth. It is also a fact. And yet, as the video showed, despite the fact that these changes are brought about through positive changes in people's lives, in terms of choices, in terms of health, in terms of longevity, it's often presented in a very negative way. And I think that this is really one of the main first steps of the demographic resilience program, is to go beyond this traditional negative view of demographic change, but then also to recognize that while we should celebrate it, there are challenges that are associated with it as well, and that we need to respond to these challenges in a multi-dimensional way. There is no point, I would argue as a demographer, seeking purely demographic solutions to what is perceived to be a demographic problem, by which I'm talking about only increase in fertility or some kind of change in migration. So what we need to do is be realistic and to say, well, there are challenges associated with population aging and slow demographic growth. And how can we actually address those in a fair way, in an equitable way, and in a sustainable way? And this is always going to be a very significant challenge, not least because even though aging is nothing new, many countries in the world have gone through this in the 20th century, the experiences of many of those countries who aged in the 20th century are very different to the countries who are aging in the 21st century. And the systems in place that we need to adapt for today are going to be very different. So that is a major challenge of not only reforming institutions, and it's not just easy answers, oh, raise the pension age, raise the retirement age. If I hear this another time, but of course, it's fundamentally unfair to just say we're going to raise the pension age, we raise the retirement age. You will increase inequality by raising the pension age. So there's no easy answer to any of these solutions. But then we also need to recognize that new systems need to be built for the 21st century that are resilient. That's precisely how I like this word of being resilient to the change that we can see over the horizons. But it's not just about responding to changes and reforming. It's about adapting to change in a positive way. Part of the reason, I think, why we have this view that demographic aging, population aging and demographic slow growth is problematic is because we still think like factory owners in the 20th century. We think in a modernist way that people are just numbers on spreadsheets, units of production, and the more the better, the younger the better. Well, I don't know if you looked around Europe at the moment, we don't look like a factory. We have a different world. And we live in a postmodern world now, where individual rights, individual hopes and aspirations, if they are achieved and if the potential of individuals are achieved, that's worth much more than labour productivity in and of itself, than factory development. And so what we need to do is recognise that as our populations are indeed getting older and maybe smaller, they're also getting more highly skilled, more educated, healthier, possibly richer in some places as well. But this is a very incomplete and unequal transition. So what we need to be doing is making sure that the full potential of all of our people is fully realised. That's the only way that we'll be able to, I think, get through these challenges of the 21st century. And then that will then link into, by building and developing and enabling the potential of different people, it will link back to, well, why are we in this situation in the first place? Why are young people leaving so many countries in our region? Again, is it due to the lack of opportunity and the lack of the potential of their human capital being realised? And then the last thing just to say is about how we go about doing this. Well, you know, we have to take a holistic approach. There's no point just talking about older people. It has to be across the life course. It has to be gender sensitive. We have to be inclusive of sexual minorities. We have to look at all of the population as an organism working together. It has to be linked across different megatrends. How can technology offset some of these changes? How will climate change exaggerate some of these changes? And then finally, we have to recognize and be humble that we don't know the answer. We simply don't know. There is no one model. And I always get, you know, when people say, well, what should we do? Who's got the best policy in the world? Nobody has got the best policy in the world. There is no model that we can follow. So the only way we're going to get there is by working together, and is by looking as stakeholders, community groups, NGOs, governments, and so on. And that's why I think this policy and practice community and through the Sophia Alliance is so important. And it really does give us the opportunity to create a new, resilient population that can respond to these changes of the 21st century. Thanks very much, Marta.
Thank you, Stuart. It's really... Always, I'm fascinated listening to your interventions and really harnessing the opportunities adapting, learning, doing this together are some of my takeaway from your intervention, but also looking at equitable and sustainable ways to give the opportunities for people to thrive and societies to prosper. So I now would like to turn to our prominent panelists and invite His Excellency Narek Mukherjian, the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs of Armenia. And I have a question for you. We heard today in the opening, in the plenary of the conference, but also I think Stuart mentioned, that aging often is viewed as a negative phenomenon. And what is your view on this issue? How your country is addressing aging? I'm sure many of the audience members are also interested to connect with Armenia on your experience in the future. You have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the organizers of this interesting panel, and thank you for the question. So this is a very interesting question, and I think there are several answers to this question because it's a matter of perception. First of all, we have to understand what means to be old, what is the concept of aging, so what do we mean by old? So first of all, it's a physical process which will be with us. We can't bypass it. We have to understand so what we should do with this physical process. So first of all, we can, if we take this concept into consideration through the prism of philosophical studies, then so the discussion will lead us to another direction. We are in Rome, and in ancient Rome, aging was considered as a symbol of wisdom and leadership. And so it was not negative phenomenon. And I don't agree with this concept that the aging is a negative phenomenon because, first of all, we have to understand ourselves what is the concept of aging and what should we do with this process. But when we consider this concept through the prism of demographical studies, and we consider take into consideration like the longer average life expectancy or lower birth rates, etc., which in fact resulting in increase in the older population, then this is again not the negative phenomenon, but something which has challenges. And as a government, as a society, if we provide appropriate responses to these challenges, we can turn the challenge into opportunity. So especially I want to focus, so invite your attention to the concept of small state and the aging, because Armenia is a small state, so we do not have a lot of resources. How we conceptualize smallness? So we conceptualize it by size, by GDP, by its natural resources. But the states which has no, for example, huge natural resources, etc., there is one important resource, it's human capital. And when we turn into the Armenian example, Armenia is a small country with huge human capital, and the Armenian diaspora plays quite important role in different areas and in different parts of the world. And so this is important source, valuable source. And older population is an inseparable and important part of this human capital. Now the governments, society, international organizations, etc., we have to understand what we are doing with this important human capital. So we have to, I think, provide, first of all, services in order to provide, let's say, a healthy aging, and also aging based on dignity. This is the most important thing, because even when, again, taking this into consideration through the prism of philosophical studies, again, in ancient Rome, when we look back it, again, when even you has wisdom at the age of, for example, 17 more, the government or family should provide, for example, services based on dignity. The government should provide environment, family environment for them, provide dignified services in order they feel satisfied. This is the most important thing. Armenia, as many states, they share a lot of common challenges. Like by 2030, the number of retired people in Armenia should reach up to 500,000. And by 2050, according to UN population projections, the share of the elderly will comprise around 24%. So we are also working on different policies in order to address all of these challenges, to provide them, in fact, healthy environment, family environment, and of course to provide inclusion environment where they can be so live inclusively, and also better services and the sources of satisfaction, which lead us to the age of wisdom and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. A very beautiful story with the historical metaphors for the 21st century, as Stuart was calling upon us, but also through the wisdom and leadership to the human capital investment and opportunities to live in dignity and respect. So thank you. We wish you good luck with all the aspirations for Armenia, and we are together to work committed strongly from UNFPA side to support your government efforts in addressing the demographic shifts in Armenia. Thank you very much again, Excellency Makarchian. I'm getting better and better. So I would like now invite you to cross the Black Sea and reach North Macedonia, and invite Her Excellency Jovanka Trenčevska, the Minister of Labor and Social Policy of the North Macedonia, to give us some examples how social and economic policies in your country are taking the well-being and dignity of older persons into account. Not an easy issue to be taken in consideration, but all member states are looking for solutions. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Ms. Velesa. Dear participants, dear ministers, ladies and gentlemen, aging of the population is a reality not only in North Macedonia, but it's a reality in all societies. The Republic of North Macedonia has already taken steps to address the challenges arising from the population aging, and is in the process of developing a wider framework for integrating the demographic challenges in its development policies. For the government and for the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, policies and measures for older people is one of the highest priority, but also is the highest responsibility. In March 2022, amendments to the law on pension and disability insurance came in force, which introduced a new methodology of pension adjustment, and twice a year pension will be adjusted by applying the new model of the methodology, 50% increase of the average salary and 50% increase of the cost of living. The initial analysis prepared by the Ministry of Finance have shown that this adjustment will bring pension growth of more than 8%, and the first adjustment will be in September this year. Also, government from April provided financial support for all pensioners in the country for a period of 3 months for dealing with consequences from the economic and energy crisis. The process of decentralization of competencies from center to local level has brought the social services closer to the citizens in their place of residence, and the local government was included. As part of the social services improvement project funded by a World Bank loan, in 2020 the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy has concluded contracts with 22 municipalities and 15 service providers for 22 sub-projects, of which 16 are aimed at the social services development for older people, including 15 for home care services and 1 for daycare services with active aging. This year, in July, the second call will be published for social services, and with this we will ensure that all inclusiveness and accessibility of these services will be in line with the needs of the citizens on the local level, with focus of the older people. Through this project, older and bedridden people and people unable to care for themselves have been provided with assistance and support in carrying out their everyday chores by caregivers. At the same time, we have engaged hard-to-employ people from the community as caregivers. Benefits are twofold. From one side, assistance and support have been provided to those who need it, and from other side, the hard-to-employed persons have been provided with a paid job and an entrance to the labor market. And in cooperation with UNFPA, we are now in the process of planning a new phase of the measures that will address the demographic challenges and will strengthening the capacity to institutions to adopt measures and policies that will support the access to the rights and quality services for citizens of all age groups. In dealing with these challenges, we know we are not alone, and we are ready to exchange experience and knowledge with other countries, with our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting to hear, among other issues you mentioned, the role of local authorities and diversifying the services in the community for the benefit and with the dignity and respect to older persons. So thank you very much, Minister Trenčevska, for sharing the ambitious program in North Macedonia that is running these days. With this, I want now to move to Moldova and invite His Excellency Minister Marcel Spatari, Minister of Labor and Social Protection of the Republic of Moldova, to address the following question. How aging is being addressed in current policies or policies in your country that are currently under development? So, Minister Spatari, where aging is in the priorities of the country and how you're addressing those issues?
It's high at the top.
Excellencies.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, aging is high at the top of our priorities. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Gamarjoba, Damadloba, Cartvel Ministers, добър ден и благодаря за организиране на тази среща. Много приятно. It is a pleasure to be here today and to discuss what the Republic of Moldova has been doing and what we are planning to do on promoting and harness healthy and active aging. Like many countries in Europe, the Republic of Moldova is undergoing demographic changes. Our population is aging and shrinking. It's not a surprise. This is the result of low fertility rate, high immigration, and low life expectancy. By 2040, the population of the Republic of Moldova is projected to decline from 2.5 million to 1.7 million. And people aged over 30 is expected to constitute a third of the country's population. But this is not necessarily bad news. We all come from countries that respect our older people and consider them a source of wisdom and experience. I particularly know how much elderly are respected in the Caucasian countries. We in Moldova even have a saying, those who don't have older people should buy them. That is why our Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, along with other government agencies and international partners, took many steps to promote active aging. In 2017, the ministry developed a roadmap on aging and an action plan on mainstreaming aging in sectorial policies. The action plan was focused on providing equal opportunities for people of all generations based on the active aging principle. With the support of UNFPA and the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, we created a set of new concepts that aim to stimulate active aging, such as creating age-friendly workplaces, building competency guarantee programs, and integrating older persons in decision-making, both at local and central level of the government. In addition, for the past 6 years, our ministry is organizing a small grants program for the elderly, for non-profit organizations, and it is focused on distributing resources to develop services for older people, for healthy aging, volunteering, and activism. We also implemented projects to increase the digital skills of older people. You know how much it is important, especially now after the COVID-19 pandemic and the isolation that many elderly faced. It is important to have connection with the dear ones, and for this, in order to help older people socialize and connect with their relatives, we have distributed phones and tablets, and young people have taught older persons how to use them. Every year on October 1st, on the occasion of the International Day of Older People, we organize a national award ceremony for most active older people, where we highlight the contributions of older persons in our country. This year, we started the development of a new program on active and healthy aging for 2023-2027. The program will focus on how we continue to integrate the approach to active and healthy aging, how we create a social, physical, and digitally friendly infrastructure that is accessible to older people, how we fight stereotypes, how we reduce loneliness and social isolation of older people, how we encourage their social participation, and how we implement innovative solutions in the local communities. Throughout this program, we aim to strengthen the institutional capacities, but also to allocate more resources, to add additional budget for the social programs for the elderly. And this is a high priority. Usually, governments increase pensions in the electoral year. We did otherwise. We increased pensions when we came to office last August. This was the first major action of our ministry. By the way, our ministry was separated from the health ministry, and this was a good decision. I think that we were able to implement many more policies. We increased the minimum pension by 90%, almost doubled in 6 months. And we are now working on another mechanism. It will be called the Silver Fund that that intends to fix a historical structural problem of our pension system. If you look at the pension curve in our country, you will see that the average pension is increasing up to 77 years of age for the pensioners, right? But then it sharply decreases after 78 years of age. So someone that is now 90 has an average pension 20% below someone that is 70. And that is indeed the heritage of the Soviet Union. I won't enter into details, but it is a fact. So in order to fix this, we need a new mechanism. We are developing this mechanism. It will cost us a little bit, but it is fair, and we will call this mechanism the Silver Fund. Moldova, is a small country with a fragile economy, and we are facing many crises. The energy crisis with skyrocketing prices, inflation is around 30%, and then on top of this, the Russian war in Ukraine has significantly impacted us. Hundreds of thousands of mothers, children, and older people were displaced in Ukraine and have fled the war. Around 500,000 have entered our country, and around 80,000 are now on the territory of our country. These are older people, mothers, children. This makes up to 3% of our population. And we have opened our labor market to Ukrainian refugees. We have allowed access to our schools to Ukrainian children. We have offered social and medical services to Ukrainian older people. And we can have all the ministries and ministers around the table. We can have all the best strategies and all the best action plans. We can have all the instruments and all the investments, but we will achieve nothing if we will not have the most important thing, peace. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Spatari. It was very interesting to hear the ambitious and learn a little bit. Of course, the time is short, but learning about your Silver Fund, the intergenerational solidarity, which added to the varieties of possible solutions or directions of work, the digital skills, but also appraising the contribution of the older persons to the society is equally valuable for recognizing them as individuals, as contributors to the society they belong. With this, we completed the round of interventions from our panelists. So, and I feel the time also is running out, but we would like to invite you for your last intervention. If you have opportunity to make a key recommendation to a policymaker in any country, and listening today to the conversation here and in the plenary, what will be your key takeaway or key advice to these policymakers for the future of aging societies in Europe? So I'll start from my left with Minister Mărcărcian.
Thank you for the question. In fact, so this kind of events creates unique opportunity to change with ideas, to discuss also the policies that successful experiences that different countries already have. Indeed, the challenges and problems sometimes are universal. And one of the important recommendations, which also is usable for us as well, and we will start to work on that direction as well, to provide opportunity for old generation to continue add value in society. So to continue keep them as an important part, as an important agents of changes and the developments of society. And I know that in Western Europe there are already countries which, for example, has interesting programs for retired professionals. If someone wants to, for example, to add value, to work somewhere in the world, so the governments provide source of satisfaction, and until they feel that they can contribute to society locally and globally, then we should do everything to provide that opportunity. So as a country, we had an opportunity to receive some professionals, for example, from Netherlands, and they, at the age of 80, for example, they visited and they contributed us, helped to develop different sectors, etc. So my recommendation, both to our policymakers and myself and others, to do real projects to provide them continue add value in society and contribute society at the, when they will be retired. So to use that skills and knowledge to develop societies both locally and globally.
Thank you so much. Strong message for the way forward. Minister Trenchovska, what will be your message?
For policy designers and for us as the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, healthy aging implies a holistic approach to building policies that take an account of and include the intergenerational perspective, which ensure the access to rights and quality services, also ensure equal opportunities, support for the culture of healthy living, and support of the families. We are obliged to ensure peaceful, quiet pensioners' days to our older citizens who have invested themselves in building of our homeland. And now we, as a younger generation, are committed to working on the realization and effectuation of the human potential of people of different age group. So continue to implementation of local services and ensuring including of more providers of services will be our priority in the future. And we hope that in period of 2 or 3 years, we'll have even more good practices implemented and learn lessons to share with other countries.
Thank you. I don't know where will be the next conference of MIPAA, but we definitely will want to hear more on these commitments and promises in 4 or 5 years to advance, also to look holistically, to work intergenerational-wise along the many strong messages and commitments you brought. Thank you so much, Minister Trenčovska. And now I want to invite Minister Spatari for your messages to the policymakers here, but also those who are listening us virtually. What should be the direction of our work?
Well, of course, I agree with the values that we all share and we will implement in our policies. But from my personal experience, I would suggest my counterparts from the other countries to look on the curve of the average pension depending on the age size. Because I was myself surprised to discover this curve. I will show it to you, colleagues. I spoke about this. This is the curve in our country. So it sharply declines after 78 years of age because of the heritage, as I said. And I know, I was working for 12 years in Romania. I know that in Romania, well, the curve is not so sharply going down, but it is still declining. So perhaps we need some mechanism to support more those that are above 80 years of age, maybe through some special mechanisms. We have now seen the figures. The difference of the average pension of a pensioner above 90 compared to a pensioner around 70 is 27% in our country. This is significant. So these are, in many cases, you know, single persons, isolated, and they also receive, you know, lower pensions. Many of us share the same past. So I would suggest to my colleagues just to have a look at this curve in their countries, and sometimes you can have some surprises. I myself discovered this one month ago. I didn't know that we have this kind of situation. Yes, thank you.
I would like to thank you for bringing the point of a fact that actually older persons are not homogeneous groups. And we really need to look very specifically and very deeply to understand the situation, the opportunities, the aspirations, but also the needs they have, and design in such a way our policies that they can respond to the needs of the individuals. Stuart, now over to you. I could see how you were sitting on the chair, a lot of triggering ideas, but also 21st century demography. What will be your message for the policy and practice community direction, and how do you see us in 4 or 5 years moving onwards?
Well, thanks very much, Marta. I mean, I think that for me, really just the experience of listening to the countries that we've heard from today just goes to show that there are so many great things going on in different parts of the region. And that these interventions, these responses, need to be shared, and there'll be commonalities in different countries where we can learn directly, but also uniqueness to different countries as well. And so I think that's where it really it clearly demonstrates the need for this policy and practice community to be the place where those kind of engagements can take place. Now, of course, that's much easier said than done. It's very difficult to get these things moving, to get them, to get power behind them, to get to meet regularly. But I think that is important. But then, really, the last thing as well is that it's not just about saying that we do interventions, but we also need to prove that they work. We need to demonstrate that they are effective. And then we enter into a virtuous cycle where we can categorically show that something works in one place, and it's easier to adopt it in others. And in order to do that, I'm afraid I am going to be the typical academic who talks about data, that we need to have a better data framework. And the great thing is that the tools do exist. And we have longitudinal surveys we have SHARE, we have aging surveys, and we have the Gender and Generations survey as well. And of course, it's one thing which is often said that, oh no, but longitudinal surveys are very, very expensive, they're only for rich countries to do, it's too complicated, too resource intensive. Well, Moldova very recently has implemented the Generations and Gender Survey, and with the support, but again in a collaboration with UNFPA, with government, with local stakeholders, with the academic community. And so when we actually work together, there's really no excuse. It can be done, and it is a worthwhile investment to show that it works. It's not just for us to write articles about it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks, Marta.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was very nice closing of the cycle and richness of the spectrum of interventions, actions to be taken, data, and understanding your situation was the missing part of the puzzle to conclude the picture of aging. So with this, we would like to conclude and thank you once again for joining for this conversation, to be continued further deeper and with menu of options to support the governments in their efforts addressing the opportunities and the challenges around aging. Thank you very much and have a fruitful afternoon.